Aloha, everyone, to the Light Body Lifestyle. And the series is called Lovelight Speaks. Today, we are featuring one of my cherished brothers, Abria Joseph. Abria is an international yoga instructor and teacher. He is a global speaker and also a handpan musician. And he offers a beautiful alchemy between energy and music for us. And I want to say, welcome, brother.
Mahalo. Thank you so much for creating space for us to get together here, both internet and energetic. And the intention behind it is what opened me so much to co-creating. So thank you for that, CJ. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
So you have some really beautiful cultivated energies and aptitudes. I would love for you to share with us what's in your heart, and maybe gift us with some of what your magic is, so that we can give our viewers the visceral experience of what you have come into alignment with so beautifully.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you for sharing that. It's the stories that I've experienced, that I have within my narrative in my mind, and how I interject or integrate or activate the personality. So I'm not really holding on to all this heaviness that I hear from outside, or that I might see happening in actions around me, but that I can know deep down that everyone is really, I feel, truly doing their best. Like, I really want to believe that and know that somewhere inside. However, there is certain points that create space for me to go deeper, where I'm really now being responsible for what I'm calling in. In other words, so whatever I'm thinking of and getting the visual cortex to activate a image or shapes or colors will eventually open space to possibility. And maybe that could be what I create as a reality, or what I call in as a reality, or what I start seeing more often if I'm thinking about it that frequently. So what I share, what you shared and introduced me with, is sharing and speaking, but also story spelling and dream weaving, and using our words in ways that will allow for us to be more responsible. Because if we begin to say something that may not be true, even sarcastically, it's fun to play, but there's a time and space for that. It's really going to make a difference as we are coming into a practice, as opposed to a profession. I'm not trying to do this professionally. I'm practicing every single day on how I can not carry myself, but be. I don't want to hold weight. I'm looking at different ways to transcend the verbiage of the English language into a really thoughtful means. I have to take a lot of responsibility for the powers that I know are moving through. So those are some ideas that I would just love for people to feel. And in that feeling, let you, them, whoever, discern whether that's a truth for you, or whomever it is that's listening or feeling it. But unless I see it, I won't believe it. Unless I believe it, I won't see it. So there's a balance in this reality that is based on a duality that we're living in every single day. It's what we're consuming, and the most valuable currency that I have found is my attention. It's how well that I can concentrate my light, right? We're talking about light codes that pass on from the sun, that hit the earth, that hit the plants, that we then consume, that hit the water, that we then consume, that move through the air, that we then consume. It's very interesting. If this is our evolution as a plant ourselves, being that we're grown from the planet just like everything else is. But maybe there's some, intergalactic beings that came and helped us activate. But as of right now, in the reality that we work with on a daily on the 3D, how to include myself in the story in a positive way, that would be much more my truth and what I would want and desire, as opposed to something that I don't want, which I could focus on. And now I'm wondering which one to go towards. And then I'm sitting in the middle, and no wonder people might be feeling stress or anxieties of pressures, because the way that we've been programmed has been really strategic, and it's been for a long, long time. So the only way to break that would be basically someone would have to be able to either, through nature in the course of karmic life implications of whatever we've been passed from our lineage, information to where we either get destroyed physically, mentally, or spiritually. Physically, in the physical body, a huge amount of pain. You know, mentally within the mind in regards to a construct of expectations, and then the suffering story, and the cycle goes on. And then spiritually, that could be whatever. I mean, I'll just make up all kinds of stuff if I can go for hours on. But the idea is that's an individual story, and it leads right back to stories. So that's a lot, but you could get an idea. When I share within asana, I know the postures in which shapes can be made. It's not so much the shapes that are made, but the intention as to whatever someone can do as opposed to what they cannot do, because it's none of their business because they can't do it yet. So let's look at the things that we can do and then start from ground zero. Now we have something to push on when you have a platform to stand. Otherwise, if it's sandy or wet, there's no resistance to create strength. When on the other hand of the word resistance, people might think of resistance as being something that could be negative connotation of, oh, you're resisting. Well, what are you resisting? You're resisting your freedom to choose? Yeah, I hope you resist. You know, you're resisting and pushing against the ground to build your body in a physical strength way. I hope you resist, because if you sit in outer space with nothing to push against, we'll go into limp noodle. And you can't create a lot of excitement and energy and friction and power, and definitely cannot make love if you don't have friction. It takes friction. It takes power. It takes hitting something and wanting to be into whatever it is that we're focused on. So for me, that's the physical side of the yoga, the cleansing and sharing with people water and how to purify as we were born from it, and we're gonna evaporate back into it. And it seems that people are acknowledging things more through indigenous construct, like they're really supporting native energies that were of the lands before. But I found that we should have always been acknowledging that from the beginning, and even before there was anyone maybe on the planet, or we evolved from however we've evolved, is to really look at the land that we're sitting on, because it's our house, it's our ship, it's our environment. And that's why some people are drawn to really sacred energetic sites like the Hawaiian Islands or the Indonesian islands or whatever it is, because there's a lot of energy from the volcanic, minerals and explosions that have happened there. And it wasn't that long ago in relation to like how long the planet's been here. So I found that if that is a vibration, and that idea of these explosive energies are creating incredible or immense amounts of movement, like changing the shape of the land or building or creating more land. I found over time, after doing asana and breath work and sharing publicly and speaking, that sound was a very big facet of all of our lives. And no matter what the sound, people have that connection as a language. Now we're not having to use English or the word love and explain it to people in different languages. We know that love is a feeling more than it is a thought. And that's just what I found with music. It's really being able to sit and feel love or be from love, as opposed to praying outside of myself to wish for love. Then now I'm separate from the idea of goddess or God or whatever archetype I'm like trying to pray to in the first place. So that's a bit about the ideas in which I would share with people, because I think this is an important time when we're having so much space to reflect and having to stay inwards and give people an opportunity to discern the information and not be in a rush. But it's also, don't take too long. You know, now is the moment. So if we have something to share energetically, physically, emotionally, you want to say something to someone you see that you have feelings for, it'd be good to say it in a way that's appropriate and maybe you know, really genuine. It's not like a big planned thing. You can feel the difference between someone that's really caring and just wants to be in acknowledgement of beauty, as opposed to, wow, I see beauty, now I want to take the beauty. That means that they're not acknowledging the beauty myself, if I'm saying it, in myself, because I'm looking for it outside of myself. And that's another thing about sound. If I'm not reflecting those words and saying them often or consistent enough, who knows what could be unfolded within regards to my actions could be horrible, because then who knows what the images and storylines take place. It's not coming from a really clear, transparent space of, I am love actually, so is everyone else. I'm reflecting love, and now I'm seeing it in everyone else. So I don't need actually anything. I might want it. That's a big difference. So a lot of our trainings and things that we share, both that what we're developing online, are workshops and programs to help people have tools. And these tools will enable people to then use it in their building. You know, if they're going to build their story, they're going to build their temple, what would it look like? And how would we want to see? Okay, yeah, genetically, physically, some people might have a disposition to like be a little taller or a little bit shorter or a little bit leaner or whatever. But the idea is that if you could think it and if you could see it, you will start to feel it despite it actually happening yet. So let's just start with that, because everyone can do that. And we've done it since we were younger beings. And we are younger beings now, because that's what we're also thinking and feeling. Otherwise, the more I consider that all this idea of age or time and the illusion of time, I might not know how to backtrace my steps, and I'll actually make myself grow a little bit faster or maybe a little bit older. And I actually don't want that, but I don't mind it at the same time. So that the energy within the being or the vessel that I feel like we are, as we're vibrating, you know, electrical, water-based, earth-based earthlings, you know, in a really nice suit that's like, it's a short-term lease, considering, you know, how long we've been here as beings. I would say we should just completely care for it in every way as best we know. And if we're not, then we're then making a choice to not want to know and to not want to take the responsibility, like I shared in the beginning of our chat, of what that would mean, because then we're not the ones actually sculpting us. We're allowing the environment, the social conditions, the programs, and whatever influences through family, church, and so on with our parents that then sculpt who we are. Most of the time, that's what I feel and have seen people do, but it's changing so much, which is really great, because I would like to reflect more of what I've worked on, which is actually happened now. I'm in practices and co-creations and collaboratives with so many different people from different timelines of my consciousness as well. It's pretty powerful.
I would say you've hit a magnanimous bullseye with all of that massive, every point that you make is connected. They're layers of what it is to have a 3D avatar.
Yes.
And to recognize what is our authenticity, our truth, and what has been exteriorly, environmentally programmed or projected upon us, and how to navigate that how to remember what we actually are.
Mm.
It has to be connected to nature. It has to come from sound and recognizing the beauty that's interior of us, and recognizing it within ourselves and within one another. It has to come from a sense of connectedness. And you hit on one of my old time, like, favorite topics is accountability, awareness, and how that is tethered to the accountability of cultivating our consciousness. It goes hand in hand. The more conscious you become and self-aware you become, the more responsible you are for that creation and the co-creation that all the other endeavors that you choose to co-create. It does take a meticulous, intentional, fearless heart to achieve the level that can now show, guide, assist, mentor, provide a platform for others. You have to go through the gauntlet yourself, and then you can reveal what you've humbly learned and cultivate in some way of sharing it with others. And when I was reconnected with you and learned what you were doing, woof, I was set on fire. I was just, yes, and really, really excited to highlight you and to participate in any way, shape, and form with flow, because it is a beautiful path you're on.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I would love to share a little bit of the instrument that I play that I found whilst traveling. I've been traveling for now 20 years or so, since maybe 24 years. Yeah, it's about around the time that I started teaching yoga, around 16. Every year I've left the country in beautiful ways, through sponsorships, through working my butt off, to just making it happen. And I was living in Holland at the time, in the Netherlands, and in this beautiful town called Haarlem. It's actually where the original Harlem was in New York, but it's spelled Haarlem. And I heard in this huge market square this sound. And the sound was so resonant and so crystally and so something that I kind of remembered, but I didn't know what it looked like. So when I walked up to this crowd of people, I worked my way to the front and I saw this little saucer looking disc of metal sitting on the lap of this young man. And I was just mesmerized, not just through the aesthetic, but the energy that I felt through the sound that drew me, like Krishna brought the children to share the story and bring the energies back. It's like it was calling me. And it took about 5 to 8 years, I can't recall the timing, to where I actually had an opportunity to play one and then acquire one. And I didn't have the money because they were a few $1,000s. And a friend sent me a card and said, go ahead and buy it. And ever since then, from never playing an instrument to this point now, with playing with incredible artists from all around the world, sharing in front of thousands of people in a concert with the lead singer of Aerosmith, Steven Tyler, to really opening up the most minimal, small, activating groups, sharing cacao or sound ceremonies. And there is no wrong or right in it. Imagine that. There's no wrong or right in how you play it. There's of course structure, there's of course techniques, but we're talking about if we were in a human body, which we happen to be less, what if there was no wrong or right? There was just experiences and learnings and solutions, and this is how we get to experience how we share our sound. Because whatever then we vibrate in the mind as a thought, that vibration can emit through our being, our presence, through our pineal, through our body. You can feel it in the skin when we get truth bumps. We can feel it in the womb and the tummy. You can feel it in the sexual organs. You can feel it in any and everything that we know to be real in this dimension, our senses. And we trust that what we're hearing is familiar, but also very ancient. Imagine if everything we dreamed, health, wellness, wealth, family, and love, and peace within our own minds, was not only possible, but we were already in the experience of it. In other words, we are in a position of forecasting our dreams, what we know we are meant to be experienced as guardians. What a beautiful story that would be, to feel so deeply beyond the senses that we know, beyond the senses we've been told, so that we could start to see and feel the architecture is within the mind. Imagine that. How do we layer our thoughts? It's all a practice. Everything that we do for all our life, even when we get the designation of a doctor, a lawyer, an influencer, a teacher, professor, we can change the entire mood just with our sound based on what we focus on, what we start to study and practice. All of a sudden, we're that.
Gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. Yeah, something that you shared there really hit home, the way we layer our thoughts. So powerful. Right? What we give our energy and focus towards, and how that's layered upon our moments. So important to tune into. Right? It's gorgeous.
Thank you. And the idea is that if we were to see a movie or a highlight reel or a trailer, to get thousands, millions, whatever it is, of people's attention, right? Their most powerful currency, and how they're being steered to live and dream their lives. What does the production look like? Who's on your team? Who are you dreaming with, and how proficient are they in their responsibility of being in their bodies and accountable, and even beyond, to the point where you're like, wow, this, I would never have expected this person to be this good, which then releases even more endorphins and chemical reactions and alchemies to feel even more confident. And then all of a sudden, and we know that we're one. Because if we have a collective vision on a similar experience, we will all fulfill our individual dreams beyond our expectations, which is just a practice of being here now, which is the practice of the power of now, which is the practice of Dream It Real. It's the practice of Just Do It. It's the practice of every freaking thing that talks about showing up and not bailing out. And that may mean at times being really, really tight and really strict and really transparent, because the most beautiful color is clear. Clear in that it's clear enough in transparency that we can see through the bullshit, and clear enough in the transparency that we can see the actual color of whatever is coming out beyond what we can see in this dimension in regards to radiance and love that you can feel through someone's voice, that you can see through someone's eyes, even through online spectrum of crystals and technology in a compact little pouch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, cosmic technology right here.
Yeah, it's amazing. All we need to do is hold on to the crystals, which is what you were touching on, is one of the biggest activations. When I did recently, I did from January 15th to just after March 17th, I did a 64-day cold press juice cleanse. I did drink coconuts because that's technically cold pressed and you should crack it. And the amount of information that I was shared and told through spirit, through the physical, and through what I know through knowledge and experience of seeking as a seeker of the truth, that basically we need to get back into nature. That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
And as soon as we hit nature, which is what oftentimes our culture has been programmed to work so hard to get back to on the weekend or whenever they can after they work their butt off for how many weeks or how many months straight. It's actually not a sustainable lifestyle. Therefore, our bodies may not last or exist as long on this plane when it's being pushed through the threshold, and now you got nothing to even walk through. There's no door. And that's what I found is activating back in the elements and realizing that if I were to really look at what God and Goddess is here, aside from other beings, all the other humans, the billions of people on this planet, I would say it's going back into her, going back into her earth, into her waters, into her fires, into her airs and snows, whatever it is that would allow people to feel extreme elements where, the texture or the canvas, if you were to dream it real and you go deep into the waterfalls in Kauai or in Maui or wherever in the islands that, we're both in, and on, it's almost like it's unreal because it's so extreme. How does a plant grow that big? What kind of nutrients made it so big, and why? It made me think of when I was in Egypt and sitting in Karnak or the pyramids of Giza and going, why would any being build something so huge? But this is different. This is nature being just as big, if not bigger, than any of those temples, trying just to leave a little landmark as to their point in time that they created this. It just blows my mind and my heart open to know that there are these sacred sites all over the planet. But in seeking, what I've looked for has always been in me and you and everyone. but not having to look for it. That was the trick. No one told us that it's inside, really, you know. So finding a way to be discerning with all of this stuff when we're younger beings, told that this is how things are, and not totally knowing for sure if it's true, but yet wanting to trust that, you know, who's leading us knows well and means good for us. However, we end up finding that, oh, they didn't know what they were doing. And that's okay.
It's kind of a blind leading the blind, I call it.
Yeah.
Right? They didn't know that they were projected and programmed. Our grandparents, their grandparents really didn't realize the programming, the conditioning, the altering that was taking place. And it was the moment, I believe, the moment that we became beyond, when we started to agriculture and settle rather than move with the seasons and the animals and being nomadic. To me, it seemed logical that when we kind of stopped and became, I don't want to say stagnant, but comfortable in one spot, and we started to cultivate things around us, and rather than just flow, we started to shift humanity and more or less try to anchor in nature to support us rather than us being one with nature and moving along with nature. So yeah, that programming is, you can't really fault them, because literally they did not understand that that was what was happening. But to do what you're saying, to follow this and discover, why is it that we crave the vacation? Why is it that we crave that paradise or that serenity, and that what we really experience is the connection? What we're craving is the connection to earth, to the elementals, to the elemental, realms, to the waters, to, to the lands, to, bonfires on the beach, or, deep forest immersions, where we can literally be encompassed and cocooned in her fields, the most natural thing that there is, and remember that that's what we're a part of. We crave it like none other.
Yeah.
Because it
Absolutely.
satiates us, it recalibrates us, it supports us, it nurtures us more than I believe the average everyday Joe really can take in, like to really grasp mentally how much they're being nourished when they're there. That's why everyone that comes to that space becomes euphoric and carefree and relaxed. It's because they're in the resonance of the truth of what they are. And they have a way and a standpoint of reflecting back to what their day-to-day life is, which is the keeping up with the Joneses and that rat race, that hamster wheel that they've bought into. And, which is one of the reasons why I moved here. I was like, I am not a match. My heart kept saying, like, neon flashing gong red lights, I am not a match to this. I'm not a match. I must discover and be true to myself and allow myself to be in the environment that I'm a match to. That's where I will find the fulfillment, and the life purpose will launch from there. That will be more of a legacy to leave behind, right? To walk that walk. And you have to dedicate, once you have that realization, that aha moment, and your heart saying that, because anything that's in here, if it's whispering, it's not going to stop. If it's screaming, it's not going to stop. You have to honor what's in your heart and let your mind get on board with it and figure out how to create that alliance so that you can jump fearlessly all in and go and discover what's really in this journey for you, for ourselves.
Absolutely. Yeah, you touched on the idea of domestication and settling. And that's absolutely one of the major experiences we've been going through as humans, being to humans doing too much. And what ends up happening is, as things have progressed and, you know, little by little, control mechanisms and programs to keep things in order and alignment of whoever had power, or assuming people just had the power, even though there were small numbers of people, was all based on control constructs and fear. And so when, you know, if there was a certain powerhouse in a tribe, you know, everyone had their different roles. And that's what I've found as I've traveled more, to see the more sustainable lifestyles that haven't changed, that have treaded very little on the planet in regards to damage. They're the ones that have a very close connection to the earth and to sustainability, based on just being able to survive, but then thriving for thousands of years that way, you know, where they didn't actually need to evolve anything more. But as things progress and there's more judgment and then there's more pressure to do what everyone else is doing, within what you said, keeping up with the Joneses, that's that totalitarian tiptoe. It's like little by little we add this, and now little by little we add this law, and then now we have these things, and now you can't even cross a border without a certain identification. Whereas, you know, our ancestors didn't have anything and they came all the way over here. Maybe they did, you know, like in the last 100 years, there's papers or some type of documentation. No sound on my side.
Okay, I got you back.
I got you now.
Okay, great. So yeah, I'm trying to get back to where you were, what you were speaking about.
Totalitarian tiptoe is a process in which David Icke, incredible author and man, shares about how slowly we get pressured into getting into the systems where we start agreeing to everything, and then through fear-based control systems and programs, and then that will definitely, like what's being in some people's experiences right now, globally, with control, and then tightening things to the point where, you know, you better find where you want to be, you know, and know that it's sustainable for you, and that there's the community, or you have enough sovereign power within your mind space to be able to handle it. Otherwise, what will or can happen is a lot of fear will actualize, because there's no preparation for these types of things, which is the whole point. The whole point is not to have anyone prepared, you know, except for people that have felt the call and knew to do whatever they needed to do, physically, mentally, spiritually, in whatever amount of time prior to this point in the moment, which is all we really have. Like, I can prepare for a few years from now, but all I got is what I have in the moment. So I really like what you said about that, because I'm seeing how people get really comfortable in discomfort to the point where they're okay with the injuries they have. They're okay with not being able to see past their wasteland. They're okay with the conditions in which they're living in, which is not, I would say, in general, for health and wellness, it would be cleaner to live in a hut outside than in some of the structures. At least it would be more connected to the earth and things like this. But, you know, to each is their own. Like, I really have a Shivic idea of destroying everything that is not being really clear and honest. But at the same time, it's so much energy to go into that archetypal power for myself, and I am surrendering to that, because I've already done enough on myself with that,
Right.
damage wise, in between my own stories. That's why I say, what kind of story would you want, knowing that you could choose, because we have choice. Not everyone has choices. Internationally, there's so many countries that do not have a choice, from when they're raised as a young child and then have to be covered, only their eyes are shown in certain parts of the planet. That's on the physical. And then on the mental, just hiding all of the traumas or challenges or exploitations on people that might have happened in one's youth or continued through adulthood. I don't know what to say in regards to that. And I'm thinking that I have a lot of trauma and challenges. And I'm like, compared to what?
Right.
Compared to who?
Right. Key.
You know?
Yeah, that's the key. Yeah, and I noticed that the human condition, in my opinion, is the illusion of separatism and the relinquishment of their own divinity and their own power to these exterior expectations, systems, archetypes that have created this codependency. So even in America, it is an illusion that you are free, right? We may have perceived more freedoms than others, granted. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say that your screen froze, but you're back in flow now.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's a good teamwork. But basically, it's just that that control and freedom are these, to me, very illusionary concepts. And we buy in, or we participate, with and play along with in some way, shape, or form throughout our lives. And we must become, there's a place and time where each and every one of us must question that and must discern, what is actually our desires and our truths and what we're participating with and how much we want to, give to that. And then how much of our sovereignty are we going to reclaim? And the more we do that, the more authentic we feel, and the more we start to trust our, solar plexus and we realize how our bodies are connected to everything we think, say, and do. And we learned that we were given this incredible navigation system that has nothing to do with those exterior programs and projections, that we can actually trust ourselves. But I think there's just a few that go there, that literally go, forget about it. I'm going to just jump in here and see how well I'll fare without playing along with all the rules and stipulations, which is what I love about the indigenous cultures, is that you don't see indigenous cultures that are overindulgent. Doesn't exist, not one. Like, if anyone can name one, I'd be surprised, right? Like, anything that's connected to the land and is living so authentically and purely, nature wastes nothing. And there is no such thing as this distraction factor that most of the modern world has with media and all these other dynamics. These people are raw, but they're sound. Their bodies are not, they're fit. They're healthy in a way. They're vibrant in a way because they're still connected to that, and they're not eluded. They're not diluted with all these other things that the modern world, so to speak, modern world, this escapism from being here now.
Yeah.
The indigenous tribal people are being here now, every now, in the eternal now. They are intimately woven and connected to this eternal now. And their health and vitality reflects that.
Absolutely. And that's, I think, what you touched in the beginning of that flow and channel was that, tell me any indigenous kind of tribe or nation that can get so extravagant. And it's true, because they can't do it, because that's not how their systems would work. It was based on smaller communities or dynasties that were able to stay in tribal, maybe a few hundreds in Mayans, or whatever happened in Atlantis in regards to thousands of people, or but when it gets to the point where people are having to squeeze into a construct, literally a construction site that's stacking tons of energies and souls in boxes of cement as opposed to earth and being more connected to the ground. I can see and feel and reflect that it would be very uncomfortable. You know, every time I've been in a really tall building, even I was 2000, I just got out of Bastyr in Washington State in 2007, and I went into business again, which I've been involved in real estate for a long time, and insurance, and getting my broker's license and insurance licenses. And I was in the top of Transamerica building, which is an insurance building primarily, sitting at the top floor in an executive building where there's people making, you know, millions of dollars a month. And I'm sitting and talking with these people, you know, in my suit, my hair is all short and I'm all dressed up, Sharpie and slick. And I'm like in my personality going, yeah, this is the life, you know, but I could feel being that high. I'm like, so weird being this high. I'm like so far down to the ground. And it felt like almost wobbly because I'm like always usually in nature, surfing or snowboarding or hiking or biking, running, whatever the thing is on the ground. And I knew that why is it, or what is it that is calling people to push themselves for this idea of success outside of what they already are, just being a human in a body, to enjoy the success of, you know, a huge mountaintop is so rewarding. And knowing that you didn't take an elevator all the way up, you walked it, you ran it, you biked it, and you then get to see the view and take that breath. And that's the true inspiration that I found, as opposed to being inspired, being on top of a building with a lot of people that make money that are in that small percentage. And it's great, to each is their own as to whatever they've done to get to this point. But I feel it's nice to spread out that energy and make it a bit more, not even necessarily, but just like let people do what they're good at. And if people really enjoy that, then great. And if they want to build a skill that can allow people to have more tools in regards to how to speak more confidently and how to present themselves really eloquently and be really transparent and clear and know what they're talking about and have a stream of thoughts, be able to release, as opposed to having to think and have the insecurities. Well, I'll tell you now, the most powerful, influential people are the ones that can speak in front of people because they're not scared, or maybe they've worked on it and practiced it. And the ones that will stay quiet will continue to stay quiet because what they've been told is to stay quiet and raise your hand. Here's a hall pass to get here. Here's this. And then it's the whole construct for a good, I don't know, 20 years of a being's life, if not longer, depending on, you know, how smart they want to get. In other words, how much accolades they want to be acknowledged for, and diplomas and doctorates. And then now, because of that, they're a specialist and they can make X amount of dollars, as opposed to, you know, I'm pretty confident that, like, you know, all of the people that I've met in China that are acupuncturists and Chinese herbal medicines don't have a degree. The ones that are of, you know, 60 plus years old, the people that are in Peru that are in lineage medicine people as shamans, the people in Russia and Mongolia that are of that energy. I don't see them having any technologies. Yeah, they don't have the tech and the AI that we have, that we can just research something and just say that this is the based on statistic and science. Because once science is not able to prove something, they'll just say that, well, it's an anomaly. And there's the resistance of potentially being something extraordinary or magical or mystical. And then all of the stuff that indigenous, you know, Amazonian or indigenous First Nations or indigenous Aboriginals, like all of the stuff that every one of them conclusively say something about the stars, something about energy, and something about every single element and how that interacts into our life. It's kind of like Yeah, all that science stuff is not going to last in the jungle. After a
Right.
certain point, it won't last, but those temples will, and the technology that's in them in regards to intention will. But that's that kind of like totalitarian tiptoe. It gets everyone really comfy and programmed enough to feel, well, this is the truth based on the truth that I've been trained and programmed in. This is my truth. This is the truth, as opposed to someone saying this is my truth and not allowing other people to have their truths.
Mhm.
That's what I'm working on as well. I'm like, you can have your truth, but I don't have to believe your truth, right? Like
And
I can say that to somebody.
yeah, and I can have my truth and I can respect yours, but I don't necessarily have to adopt it. And
Yes.
a part of what you said is something that I'm really enjoying about the moment of now that we're in, because what I have noticed over the past 10 years starting to happen, that now I think we're coming to a precipice of, is where science is meeting nature, and science is now confirming all of the things that the ancient wisdoms have shown us all along
Mm-hmm.
about elementals, about the sound healing. We're good.
Yeah, good
Okay.
now.
Yeah, so it seems like kind of like humanity had to learn, and I'm sure in my personal opinion this has happened countless times, that the humanity rises, we come away from nature, and it's an ebb and flow of us learning that we need to get back to nature, because that's actually where it's all been happening and provided for us. But we're now at that point again where our science, quantum physics and whatnot, are telling us that we're quantum. It's actually measurable now, that we are able to self heal and self correct and have vitality and longevity, and be divine, like be supernatural. A lot of this is like Joe Dispenza's work, and Bruce Lipton's work, and Greg Braden. There's so many now that are in their accoladed professions that have left everyone else and their peers scratching their heads, because they're the ones that went to the unconventional and bridged the gap between science and nature. And every single one of them have proven that there's a marrying there, and that there is no way to separate science and nature, and that it's confirming that, yeah, the Vedics, the healings, the meridians, the chakras, the energy, it's all always been. And we're just now getting the technological ability to measure it, to repeat it, to test it, and they're all pointing back to, yeah, it's this is our reality. We just kind of took the long road
Yeah.
to applying it. But I'm excited that it's now, music is now considered a healing modality, right? Movement is now considered a healing modality. Union, global unity, and global meditations is literally a healing modality. Reiki. I mean, this is what the shamans knew all along. This is what, and I mean, I consider you a modern day shaman for sure. You've walked the walk, you've done your inner revolution, and you've created your inner bloom. And everyone knows we are continuously blooming, right? And endeavoring and learning and applying and teaching and learning and teaching. And what would you say would be some of your processes for anchoring in your light? Everyone has a specific kind of, maybe, I don't know, ritual, protocol, things that work for them, that allow them to maintain their clarity, their vitality, their intention,
Mm.
right? So would you like to share of maybe some things that others who might be listening could try out, or just learn what it is for you to anchor in to this sacred masculine, and still be willing to open and explore and endeavor in life?
Absolutely. It's a beautiful question. And I feel that at first, because I have asked for this experience, in other words, to invoke whatever it is, as a young man, not having an influence by an outside source, but just knowing that I had to ask for it to the universe, or pray to the moon, or to the stars, or the sky, or the sun. I found that I had to ask a lot of questions. I had to really inquire and ask, beyond the question of, why is this happening to me? I mean, everyone's going to ask that. Why me? Why is this happening to me? And as opposed to asking that, especially nowadays, it's like, well, why not? Why not me? If I'm the one that's in the experience and I have an opportunity to address it, or I have no choice but to address it, it's clear that I have some work, or instead of work, I could say practice, or instead of practice, I could say lifestyle, whatever it is that I can do to anchor myself back into equanimity and harmony, which is what sound feels like. I mean, what if you could see sound? Would that help someone feel the sound, as opposed to, well, I don't feel anything? Well, maybe their practice in feeling has been so desensitized based on whatever programs they've had, or electrical impulses that are overriding their electrical wiring to feel through connection, or kinetic activation, which is through touch, sight, smell, taste, and sound. But before we can get any vibration or real deep connection on anyone, if we don't see someone, we could feel them energetically without even touching. And that could be just a visual activation, or it could be a genuine energetic activation where, oh, I was feeling this kind of energy, and all of a sudden this person's shown up and they're that kind of energy. Well, is that the synchronicity, like the Celestine prophecy kind of idea, or is that really more of a coincidence? Is it good luck, or whatever things people have shared as an archetype to get away from the fact that it's actually something completely mystic and incredible and deep down always in us.
Right.
That's how I would go. I would go into asking questions. One of the TED Talks I did in the Netherlands is Dream It Real, which is what I share in talking about activating one's senses in order to see what it looks like, to feel what it is like to become what you wish or vision. The other one, though, is in Thailand. I did it the next year. It was in 2014 or 2015. I did it on my birthday, September 5th. I know you're a Virgo too, right?
Brother, that's my birthday.
Yeah, we're the same birthday.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
Except I'm like 30 years older than you.
Yeah, I know, but just in the numerical, because you act like you're 15 sometimes, and I know that's what keeps you so actively beautiful. But I'm getting up there too, No, just kidding. I'm actually turning back the energetic clock, but I don't mind the numbers clicking. But what it was in regards to was like, the talk was about removing negative self-talk. And the topic itself was on voices. And I actually coached all the speakers that were at this presentation, because it was a elite private school with their parents being like CEOs of Shell, and just interesting, like they're going to be influencers for the rest of their life, because they will either take on that lineage of whatever karma that they've been passed into, or they'll completely change it and have an opportunity to shift the entire story of humanity, based on their coming into their own story, asking their own questions. So the whole point of that was on voices. I thought, well, I have a lot of thoughts in my head and voices in my head that have been both program conditions, parents and teachers, and environments that I've seen throughout travels. So if I don't have that diversity, like a lot of people don't have, what would be their main influencers in their life that would get them so stern and so strict and hardened, to the point where they couldn't be flexible enough to bend or they would break? It must be a pretty strict construct, and I'm not taking anything from any denomination out there in regards to religions, but yeah, I don't know too many that are so free flow where you can still be as free and flexible and honor whoever else, aside from maybe, the practices of the Tibetans or Hindus or certain peoples of like Bali and Indonesia, because most of the indigenous and tribal and or Asian Eastern philosophies adapt and connect to other religions, and they'll take on everything because they want to believe also that everything has their truth, which is, I think, a beautiful philosophy. But to lead back into what the question you shared was, how do I stay in the light and in grounding? It's by asking questions initially. If the questions aren't able to come through, is it the truth? Do I know it to be the truth? Kind of like Four Agreements style, mixed with, Dr. Joe Dispenza's, scientific based, if you can forecast yourself in the future as if you were already there, you could then take yourself into that experience now without having to go there. Already alchemically in the mind, the mind is forecasting and stimulating that energy to feel that experience, which feels much better than experiencing something that hasn't happened yet that you don't freaking want.
Right.
I mean, that would be clear.
It's like creating the hologram, right? It's like, like you're programming the holographic field to show up, is what you're speaking.
Yeah, because if I want something, an experience of physical environment or beauty within the beloved, or an experience within sound, I really want to look and feel and see who's reflecting that, who's embodying it, not trying or acting it, who's already got it. And then in that, what if I don't have anyone to dream it real and see who else has done it? I have no other choice but to make it up.
Right there.
So I would have to imagine it. So that other grounding technique would be start dreaming again. I mean, I can't remember what it was like, except for a few handful of experiences, like the first time I rode my bike by myself with no one holding me up. And, you get off and you're riding and you're taking off and you're just like, oh my gosh, there's no one here and I'm free. And it's like a conscious experience of being birthed into a whole new dimension of freedom, which we don't really know, or at least myself, I can't remember when I came out of the womb being like, yeah, I'm free. It was more like, multi-dimensional being and trying to get milk and, and maybe like look around at things that are like, where am I right now? Right. Being that we start so young. So it's just dependent on grounding from myself. It depended on the timeline, I suppose, as to where I was in my evolution of consciousness, as well as shifting my vocabulary really helps in what I'm saying, because if I am still forecasting similar experiences in regards to results, it's clear that I'm doing something consistent enough to get the same experience, which is not actually the one I want. So the only way to shift it is to do something different, to ground back in, acknowledge what I do have, what I can do, and what I'm interested in actually, what I'm interested in experiencing, which is I want the most high vibration. Now, if I really want that, and I keep getting the same result from my past experiences based on what I've done, I have to do something different in the formula. X plus Y equals Z. But if I do X times Y, it will not equal Z. It'll equal something else because I changed the code, right? I changed the code in the formula. I changed the code in the light. I changed the code in my mind, and then it became in the body, and then it became in the reality. These are like kind of basic ideas, but like if we look at it practically, or someone that's really cerebral or logical, they'd be like, okay, that makes sense, but prove it. And then, people like, now with science and research helping support this, it's getting a lot more of the masses that may not be as aware yet, or they're starting to awaken because they're able to believe the science, but really they could have been activated with some type of placebo effect and just as, you know, full powered, not having any medication or any herbal remedy or anything outside of just their mind saying, oh, I took something, now I have this power, you know, and as opposed to being like, oh wait, I'm superhuman already. I was actually superhuman before I came out. So that should still keep me superhuman until I am told to be quiet and I'm told to do this. And now I'm in an interesting funnel that has separated me from, like you said, separateness from my truth of divine love or compassion or embodiment, masculine or feminine. And those are a lot of like interweaving. That's why I say layers, because if you don't have layers and B-roll to an actual video, you're only getting one dimension. You're just seeing things in one camera angle. It's not going to be as encompassing of an experience as opposed to when you get that drone shot, or you get an underwater scene, or you get, you know, from behind view. So there's cameras everywhere. And these cameras are how we intake the information through our lenses of our eyes. And if that's true in a video or a really moving film, it will be the same in our own mind because it can move us the same way. Why am I crying during film? It's freaking Moana. Well, I have a deep connection to the islands and I'm Maui. Well, what am I supposed to do? You know, like I can make that up because I want to. You know, I like the feeling of that idea, even if it's not true. And that's the idea of, what if I can ground by just starting here and then forecasting something and then coming back and then just checking and be discerning with that information, because you know, it might not be so pono, it might not be so good in service for people. So those are a few techniques that I would use. And there's a bundle that I said there, from asking questions, from going into practical and reasoning using the questions in logical form, and then putting it into practice and seeing, well, let me just see what it's like to think and focus on this all day long, as consistent and as long as possible before I lose my memory or I get distracted by something that's taking me away from my equanimity, which is like, I just need to be here, actually. That would help, I would say, people if they have the tools. And I think that's where, you know, what we're sharing and talking about could help people if they have more questions in regards to like, well, how do I apply this? Because then people are going to want to know, what's the schedule look like? How are we going to do this on a daily basis? What do I have to eat? And literally we just have to sit there, people that have it in their practice, and write that down and, you know, transmute it into, or transcribe it into, or put it into some type of form where the people that have been programmed can still hop on their program, but then go through the whole dang thing. It's like, okay, I get it now. People want the program. Mm-hmm. To deprogram themselves, they want a program so they can get different lenses and they can get different camera angles and they can get all fancy and use all these techniques of a fisheye lens. And now I got this coding color on my image. And I'm like, why don't we just make it look exactly real as it looks in real life? Well, people like the stimulation of something beyond what's real. Mm. Well, why don't they then do that in their life?
Right.
Why don't they go beyond that in their life? Why are they doing it on a freaking technology that's sitting, you know, 2-3 centimeters big on a mini screen, or, you know, a few inches wide on a phone, or a foot long on a laptop, and then all of a sudden we get to a huge big screen, and all of a sudden, because it's on a big screen, it's got more value, as opposed to just actually living it outside in the ocean, in the water, with no technology, and you're completely naked and you're swimming with friends that you're like so in trust and in love with that you don't even need to do anything. Just being there is enough. I don't know. That's a big asking of an expectation, but like I've called that in, and that's what's showing up. It's so much easier to live life that way for me because I have nothing actually to hide, literally and figuratively.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great answer, and it's a beautiful equation, and it actually is functional. And the bottom line is that you have to start somewhere. And that's where I think we both have come to and be able to enable others to recognize there's some key area in their life that I ask them to prioritize and say, where do you want to see the most change? And then, you know, kind of be the muse and offer them the tools. Similarly, like you were saying, it's about offering them a dynamic amount of tools so that they can discover what they resonate with, what inspires them, whether it's, you know, anchoring in, grounding, you know, there's countless. And so it isn't a cookie cutter answer, which is why I like to ask those that I'm interviewing, because it's important for the recipients, the world, to understand that different things work for different people, and it is a smorgasbord, and you have to be curious enough to ask the question, like you said, and playful enough to put things into various things into practical application, to try them on for size, and then experience it and go, oh, wow, this is what I resonate with. This is what creates that result in me. So this is what I'm going to apply and create as a lifestyle, or start to implement and grow from there. And so I really appreciate that answer, because it has tremendous depth and value for that as well. So we are in our last 10 minutes.
Perfect.
I would like to play a little word association with you, just to see, you know, what your heart brings forth.
Great.
And you can choose a number 1 through 50. The words are numbered, so whatever number you give me.
33.
33. Interesting. 33 is dedication.
Dedication is so relevant right now in regards to, or a reflection of, or a mirror of responsibility. And what I found is to dedicate is to put a commitment and a form of deep, like, I'm rooting into this project, into this person, into myself, or into this vision or dream. And it basically means it's kind of like not the fancy what you've worked so hard for. It's kind of the elbow grease, and you're getting into the work and the shadow and not running away. And I found that for myself, if I'm not completely dedicated or inspired to stay on track, I'll easily get distracted by something that has enough light or enough shine or shimmer or mirror. It doesn't always have to be like reflective or bright. It could also be dark light, which like you know, could bring me into like moon energy, but it will pull me away from my focus. And I have to basically loop it back to one of the talks I did, which is in the Netherlands, called Dream It Real. And the first and foremost question I asked the group and the collective was, why? Your dedication will not be as potent if you don't have a strong why. However, your dedication will be relentless and unwavering if you have a big enough why, as to why you're doing what you're doing in form. I feel that is a really big one, because the dedication will allow us to not lose track and allow our peripheral vision to pull in anything else, to know that this is where I am, with whom I'm with, and why I'm doing it is for these not so much expectations, but for these visions that I'm forecasting out, and that the other people around that collective may be also actively forecasting. And then it's that much more of a dedication in myself, because everyone's now feeling it. If it's just myself, it's much easier. If I'm on the lone wolf style, which has been the whole flow for so long, Because most people can't, it's not like a keep up, but my dedication to what I'm doing is a lifestyle. So unless someone has it in their lifestyle, it's not that they can't keep up. It's just that they don't have the dedication like I do to be responsible in order to not go through the same stories of suffering or trauma that I know that formula unleashes. So what I would have to do is say, hey, I love you so much. And in reflection, I'm in support energetically, but I cannot interweave this experience into mine in order to stay in my sovereignty and in my love, you know. So I'm coming from love. I'm not doing anything for love anymore, because that means that what I would then do for love is outside of me.
Right.
And that's not actually the truth. If I'm coming from love, or if I was born from love, I mean, that's just my idea in archetyping and creating a little bit of sacred geometry protection around that can fractal any of the waves of interesting stories away from my dedication or my why.
No, it's beautiful. I love that. And it's very solid, right? And that's what dedication is. And it's also an indicator, like if you say you're dedicated, if you're easily swayed, you kind of already understand. It's an indicator that maybe you're not as inspired, or maybe you're not quite ready. You have a desire, but you haven't anchored in, like you said, you haven't rooted in. So a lot of times the course shows us, are we really dedicated, or are we liking the idea of being dedicated, or are we reaping the, sowing and reaping the dedication, like you're saying. And it is a navigation feat to be able to do that with love, through love, and allow all that is affected to feel love along the process. I really love that.
Yeah.
Last thing in closing. So if you had, with all of your travels, with what's going on in the world right now, because this year's been extraordinary. What does your heart say? If you had a message to the world, what do you feel is like the most important thing with what you've learned along your endeavor of evolving and co-creating? What is your message to the world?
My message to the world is to really acknowledge what we have in ourselves and in around our tangible gifts that we can do now. Anything outside of our being is not actually real, because it is without our bandwidth. Our radiant of our heart cannot go outside of where we are in the environment. So what I would say to myself, if I were listening and hearing myself in reflection out there, which is all of you, and you as my sister, my friend, my mirror, that I have only what I have here. And what I would share is that if it's outside of us, to really be discerning with, why are we going outside of ourselves when it's not here? And that's the fastest way to go back. And it's a question, right? Why is it that we're allowing that energy to pull outside of ourselves? There's got to be a heavier dedication or an anchor to the why. The why is the foundation as to why we do everything in our life. And if it doesn't start where we're at with what we can do and the gifts that we have at the moment, we'll start to look for them outside of ourselves and start to reap the rewards of what we might see, or the commitments that we'll then put into the trainings and other people, thinking that they're filling us. But at the same time, unless they're also in a similar reflection, it's not going to be as easy to expand and stay in sovereignty of whatever stories are out there.
Gorgeous. Beautiful. Brother, you're solid. I so love you.
Love you too. So nice to connect and share.
So I want people to know how to get a hold of you, and we'll add this into the links. But if you'd like to share whatever's upcoming, you've got a couple minutes to share if there's any events or anything coming up, or just how to get a hold of you, how to learn more about you, how to follow up with you.
Absolutely. Easiest way is through social media on Instagram, Prana Force Yoga, Bria, and you can look it up as Abria Joseph as well. Facebook as well, as I use that more for Messenger and doing other group activations that can have people join the group. And then the other is pranaforceyoga.com. And pranaforceyoga.com, you can put an email in there, get a free download of some music that I recorded with a friend in Bali. And yeah, just ask or email any questions. Would probably be the easiest way, so I could respond and touch in. And I respond to everyone, and have had incredible messages from all around the world of their stories, from what they've experienced from the TED Talks, or hearing me play live somewhere, or they heard of me through someone of something that they had a connection with. And so that's what I would share, is if there's people out there that are seeking it, then, you know, ask if there's anything that we can co-create on, or what we could share or talk story about, and then share, you know, whatever we've passed on through both of what we've recorded and shared, and then that starts to spread the light and the love through what we've all been calling in some form.
So exciting. The wave of calling in, so immaculate and beautiful, and you know, visceral, like to share energy. And I know there's more between us coming. I know that we're going to be collaborating. It's a blessing to be reconnected with you. It's a blessing to know where you are and be so inspired. And I know you've got a lot coming up happening. And so I just want to support you in every way. And I recommend those that are really, I mean, you can feel Abria's energy and his handpan alchemy, and his yoga he emanates this love and this acceptance and this curiosity and this playfulness. And I would just, I can't wait to join in. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Very grateful to connect.
Much
Yay.
much love.
Much love, much aloha.
Yeah. I will tune in with you pretty soon.
Yeah.
And we'll follow up. But wow, you are a true gift, brother.
Thank you so much for sharing and bringing us back together in this way too. This is really a beautiful offering for people and a service. So I'm all in.
Yay, more to come.
Yeah. All right.
All right, be well. Aloha.
You too. Ciao, babe. Bye.